Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is April 4th, 2026. This is episode 46. It's a Saturday. I don't normally do a show on Saturday, but since I haven't been on consistently for the last couple of weeks, I figured I'd throw a Saturday show up, and there's enough news going on to justify it. Thank all my subscribers, new subscribers, welcome. People seeing this for the first time. This is a conservative podcast, but I do take both sides of an issue. I deal mainly with federal and state going on, mainly federal because that affects every citizen in the country. And I take in a lot of things that the president is doing, a lot of things that the Congress is doing, and a lot of things the Senate is doing. I roll it up, I ingest it, I see if it matches the good book of the Constitution, and then I go from there. So, today we're going to be talking about former VP Harris and some of her begging for money. Gavin Newsom's fraud continues. President Trump gives Iran 48 hours notice. And LA Mayor Karen Bass is in a political fight for her life. And we'll just go into some things. This is going to be a very quick show today. If I can do it quickly, I shall. I think I made, I'll figure it out. I misspoke on one of the Supreme Court votes. It was, like 7-1, and I said it was unanimous, but it was not. But whatever, it was not. I think it had to do with the Colorado voting. The Colorado free speech issue that was brought to the Supreme Court, and which the Supreme Court said Colorado could not do what they were trying to do with conversion, stopping conversion therapists from practicing. Couldn't do it. All right. So, former VP Harris is supporting a dark money group, Demand Justice, to fight any new Supreme Court justices that President Trump may choose in the future during his term. Harris is demanding that donors donate to this cause that she said would need at least $3 million to start and up to $15 million if it looks like President Trump might choose a successor to any one of the judges that might leave their positions. Demand Justice said it cannot allow the president to handpick any justices. Now, I don't know how they can do that. Josh Orton, the president of Demand Justice, has not reported on how they can stop the president from his constitutional right to nominate a Supreme Court justice for vetting through the Senate and then voting through the Senate. I don't know how they can stop the president from doing that. Josh Orton went on to say that he just needs up to $15 million in donations. Orton also did not disclose what his group would use the donations for if there are no picks to fight. So this is, again, money that would be sent in as a donation to a particular organization, and them saying, we're going to use this money to fight this, but it doesn't say what happens if there's no fight. What happens to that money? Well, I'll tell you what happens to that money. They can choose who to give it to, like, Act Blue or the same nonsense that these groups do when they collect money. When there's no money left over because they spend it on travel and everything else, they go, well, listen, there was nothing to give, but we went around and we talked to people and we met with people and, we did this and that. But again, it's Harris hawking money. And she's still, Harris still has not explained what happened to $500 million in money? Boy, the Democrats just love fraud. They just love committing fraud. And this is just one of the instances they'll go out there and go, oh, we're going to fight Trump. He can't pick. He can't hand pick. Well, you know what, folks? He could hand pick. And Biden could handpick, and Obama could handpick, and Bush could handpick. It still has to go to the Senate for ratification. They have to vote. I don't understand how the Democrats think by just them saying that we're going to stop it. We can stop the president with $15 million. Yeah, if they hit him in the head with it or something. But there's this whole premise is just to collect money. It's a scam. It's a scam. And, they said, well, we'll start with $3 million, and if we need more, we're going to ask for more. $3 million. Scam. And the public should be made aware of that. That these organizations are not to benefit you. It's to benefit their pockets or someone else or a socialist or a communist. Which is their right, but they should come out and at least tell you what they're using their money for. And they won't do that. So I got a kind of a problem with these organizations. And I'm sure there's plenty of Republican organizations out there too, under the guise of being Republican or MAGA, that, might be up to the same shenanigans. But I'm pointing this one out as a shenanigan. They don't say how the money will be used, where the money is going to go to, how they're going to fight it. And they really should have that all out there to the public before people just start sending money to, demand justice. A sucker born, every minute, every second, whatever they say, don't fall for this stuff. I'd rather you give your money to a candidate that's running for something that, you can at least ask them a question. You can't ask these people any questions. There's no one to see. There's no face. So, people, if you're going to donate money towards a cause, choose a political candidate that you could actually meet and talk to. That's your best bet for making change. Not these committees and organizations that are fringe, and you don't know where this money is going to go to. And just to say it's to stop Trump, not good enough. Not good enough. You know, you want to donate money towards a cause, you know, for people that, you know, were maybe convicted that shouldn't have been convicted, or, you know, something along those lines. They have a face, they have an organization. These groups, this dark money, that's why they're called dark money. You don't know where it's going, and you have to believe them on their face. And yeah, we've seen how that goes. All right, almost 10 minutes of that. I'm trying to keep this under 30 minutes. All right, the next topic. And see, I do come prepared. Not like I did in the 4th grade or anything like that, where I was never prepared. Poor Mrs. Lieberman. All right. California's fraud problem is so bad, the DOJ will never have enough prosecutors to fight it. Gavin Newsom is accused of allowing fraud in the hundreds of billions of dollars, stated First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, Bill Aisley, and calling Newsom the king of fraud, saying he has reigned over billions and billions of dollars of fraud. It's going to be into the hundreds of billions of dollars under his watch, he said. Now, these are allegations, but there is known fraud out there, and even Newsom has said there's fraud, but we were aware of it, and we're doing stuff to stop it, and but it's just over every federal program. And Newsom made a comment about fraud on his X account. The Trump administration, home to the biggest fraudster on earth, is trying to blame California for issues with their federal programs, Newsom said on X. Glad to see the feds finally taking seriously the fraud in programs they themselves manage, only 15 months after Trump took office. Well, Governor, you trying to blame Trump for the fraud that was going on from 2020 through 2024. Yeah, you might not want to do that. Complaining that, wow, it took them 15 months. No, it took them 3 months. And you all complained about Doge. And would Doge had been allowed to continue the digging, there'd be a lot more of the fraud exposed. Now, I don't blame Newsom for, stopping Doge or anything like that. And Doge is certainly not stopped. It's still there. And but there were a lot of, I'm sure, Republicans that said, let us clean our houses up. Because, California, New York, New Jersey and stuff, we all have problems we're aware of. And I'm sure Texas went to him and Florida went to him. And, other red states went to him and said, can we slow down a little bit here? We're doing internal stuff, we know this is a lot of money. We know it's a hot button issue. So I'm sure that President Trump got pressure from both parties because, as I've said before, when it comes to federal money, blue and red, they don't matter. It's the green. It's all about the green. So I'm guessing Tim Walz is feeling a little better of only having $19 billion of alleged fraud. So there is some light at the tunnel for some Democrats to be able to point, well, okay, it wasn't as bad as over there. Holy cow. It's still fraud. And it's when it's fraud, it's just not across, where, Republicans can say, well, see, you're taking money from me. It's taking money from Democrats. It's taking money away from liberals, from independents, from people that are not associated with any political organization but still pay taxes. That is who gets hurt by all this. And when they say, well, it's managed by the federal government, well, then that was Biden, right? From 2020 to 2024, that was Biden. And Trump, being 15 months in office, has stated that fraud's been going. He's screamed about fraud in California before he was president. So Gavin Newsom, when you make comments like that in today's world, where we can call up everything you have said, everything a politician has said, in an instant, you better be very careful on how you speak and what you speak about. Everything can be recalled. You have Jeffries being embarrassed, where he was screaming for funding for DHS at one point in his career, where you had Schumer screaming for, voter ID and identification is a must to have a free and open election. That asking for ID is not a horrible thing. And they forget what they say, or they hope that people forget what they say. We don't live in that type of world anymore, folks. So these politicians have to be very careful when they speak. And, at least acknowledge, hey, in the past, but that was what was going on then. And now we're seeing what's going on now. And I if they were to clarify that before they get up there and go, oh my God, I can't believe this is going on. And then you find out 4 years ago or 6 years ago, they had a whole different thing, but they don't acknowledge that. And there's nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong here. There is nothing wrong with people changing their opinion and their course on something if they truly believe, hey, this was, I might have been wrong on this and now I'm going to go this way. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good stewardship. Just to be able to say, yeah, looking then and looking now, I could have gone this way a little bit more and might have not had this problem. But, you can't drive forward looking in the rearview mirror. I get that. Just come out and say it. And there's been so much fraud in California across a spectrum of federal programs. that even to the state who dishes out that federal money. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. You knew it was ripe for the picking, and you were fine with it because some of that money came back to your coffers. Happens all the time in politics. I'm not saying it's blue or red. I'm just saying happens all the time in politics. That's what I said. Being blue, being red, they're both looking for the green. And you have to be on top of it. And it must be kept in check. Always going to be fraud. Always. There's always some person who tries to figure out how to game the system. So you have to be aware of that. You have to have procedures and audits. But none of that was happening. And there's so much money, this is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling, the amount of money that has been stolen from the American people. And it's going to be hard for Newsom to get around that. All right? Just saying, it's going to be hard for Newsom to get around that. He's going to have to take some ownership to it. And at least Tim Walz said at the end of the day, I'm responsible. Won't get any of that money back. It won't do anything other than the fact that he stepped up and took responsibility. All right. Of course, the war in Iran continues. We're searching for a lost airman, and they found one, and looking for the second one now. And of course, the media, running with that. Oh my God, they shot down an F-15. We've lost the war. I mean, it's just crazy talk. Our embassy was hit, and it had more damage than we originally assessed. Yeah, a bomb hits a building that is not meant to withstand a missile attack. Yeah, you're gonna have damage. An airplane on a runway gets destroyed. Yeah. You shoot enough rockets, one of them is going to hit. It's the same thing. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. So the idea of the media running and showing, look at Iran, they were able to strike back. Yeah, of course they were able to strike back. No one said that Iran didn't have the capability of striking or doing damage. You try to mitigate it. You try to lessen it. But it's going to happen, folks. That's war. And I'm not trying to minimize the loss of life or anything like that. I'm just saying you have a reality of war. And, yeah. And they said, the rescue helicopters took fire from hostile. Yeah, you're flying over hostile territory. You're going to get shot at, possibly hit and killed. That's what happens. And anyone that, sits there and doesn't admit to that, all right, that then, you get these news medias that get on there, hind legs. How could this have happened? What do you mean, how could this have happened? What are you, a moron? It's just unbelievably naive of people to think that, we're not going to take casualties. We're not going to have take losses of assets. It's going to happen. I think for everything that has been done that we know of, I will say that we might not know everything, but it's been pretty benign for us so far. Not for Israel, but for us. And you have, Iran threatening, and we're going to blow up this, we're going to do that. And these are the people that go, we just wanted peace, and yet they were making references of making atomic weapons if we wanted to. You've already made the fuel for it. Going the next step is not that hard. And, they said, well, we had a deal, and we could show that you violated that on many occasions. And that's the way it is. The Iran war was coming for 47 years, folks. And you finally have a president that said, I'm not dealing with it. There's no appeasement. You had England appeasing them like crazy. I mean, the spineless, the lack of a spine for the prime minister. I don't know how he could stand up without leaning to one side with having no backbone. What an insult. But then again, you look at London. It's 90% radical Islam. They don't want to adapt to the British homeland. No, they want to change the British homeland to what they said they were escaping. Yeah. Wake up. We need to wake up here too. And I'm all for, religious freedom, of course, religious freedom. But when your religious freedom infringes upon me, where I'm forced to do something for you, right? And I know there's people out there that go, well, abortions. It's a states' right issue. State wants to allow it. Let them set up the rules for it. If the states don't want to have it, then you have the choice as the voter in that state to elect people that are going to fulfill your agenda. So, oh, my encoder kaputsk. I'm getting some little issues with my going live. So if you're watching this live, which I don't have a count going, you can expect some breakup in the video. All right, let's go and just. All right, well, connection status is poor because my internet connection is poor. I'm now pushing this through two wirelesses to do it, but hopefully it will pick up here. And I see myself coming back. Streaming seems to be okay. I don't know. YouTube. All right, so the president has given an ultimatum to Iran to open those straits up in 48 hours, or we're going to rain hell down on you. I don't know how much more hell we can rain down on them without really then affecting the ordinary people, but you might have to do that so the ordinary people get off their butts and overthrows these guys. And you get a more reasonable government in there, which I don't believe we're going to get reasonable because for the most part, all these Islamic nations, they don't think like us. I don't expect them to think like us. But I do expect us to be able to recognize we have to think like them. And what do they understand? Power. What do they understand? Truth of your convictions. If I'm going to say I'm going to punch you in the nose if you do this, and you do it and I don't punch you in the nose, well, your word means nothing to me. If I tell you do this, I'm going to punch you in the nose, and you do it, and I break your nose, and I go to you, I told you what I was going to do. And you told me what you were going to do. You did it, then I did it. You want to go punch for punch here? Or do we want to have an understanding that we can both live with? And that's important. And of course you could say, well, Trump said no new wars and stuff, and I don't understand it. I understand. But we can't have an Iran that has nuclear weapons. We shouldn't have even had an Iran that had the ballistic weapons. You want to sell your oil? You want to get rich? Fine. But when you start saying, I want to wipe out the Jews, I could hit England, I could hit Europe if I want to. Well, then, you're a threat. And I'm going to respond to you as if your words are 100% accurate. Simple. It's not hard to understand, people. Not hard to understand. All right. Now, this is on a state issue here, and this is Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, who is mayor of the second largest city in the United States. And we see what's happening in New York with that mayor. And there's a Republican running against her, Spencer Pratt. And a poll, and again, I don't believe polls. It's I think in this poll they of the second largest city in America, and they poll 831 people, likely voters. I don't even know what that means, likely voters. Did they go to a college? Because they were all likely voters. Did they go to the teachers' union? They were all likely voters. So unless I know the demographics involved with polling, then, and the questions asked, because you could ask a question to solicit the answer you want, and that's what pollsters do. So Mayor Bass is holding a slight edge over Spencer and other challengers in what is turning out to be a very heated election. And because of the uniqueness of how they vote in California for, in this case, mayor, anyone on the ballot, any legitimate person on the ballot, regardless of standing in primaries or whatever, they get their name on the ballot and people can vote. If there is not a clear, objective winner, then they do the two people with the most amount of votes, and then they face off one another in another election. It's a crazy. This is the problem. See, I will say that what they do is 100% democracy, where it's mob rule. So they want to do that. They can do it. It's mob rule. So it is my belief that Spencer and Bass will probably be the two top tiers up there, and then we'll have to face off with one another. There's some, uber progressives running, but they have a very small percentage in there. It could come down to someone having 15% and someone having 18% of the votes, and everyone else has a breakdown down lower than that, so they trail off, they fall off. Now, the big thing is that if you were to get a Republican mayor in there, again, I don't follow the mayor's races normally. It's most times a mayor is going to make sure that businesses stay there, that unions are taken care of, and money flows. Except in the case in New York, where they've had mayors that just chase businesses out. Gone. Never to come back. And you're having people leaving California in mass, and in New York, where you had the governor begging New Yorkers who moved away, please move back. Now, in both those states, as in with other states, when you move out of state, you have to pay a fee to the state to do that. If you sold your house, the state gets money. If you move your business, the state gets money. And the state can continue coming after you after you've moved. You want to live in a state like that? Would you want to open a business in a state like that? Or would you say, I'd be better off in some other state, New York City was wonderfully positioned, so you could get people coming from Connecticut, people coming from New Jersey, people coming from Long Island. So you had a pool of certainly qualified people, and a pool of people just as regular staff supporting a business. You don't have that in California. You just don't have it. You have counties, and you have, certainly it's the third largest economy in the world, I think. I mean, it's huge. But when you start having companies moving out and shutting down because they just can't make a profit in that atmosphere of the state just fining you and penalizing you, and now California has a mileage tax on your car. So not only are you paying at the pump a state tax that takes into the account of road use and road maintenance, now they are going to charge you on how many miles you drive. And since there is very limited mass transit in California, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? The same thing with using in California and a lot of states. You use solar power, and you do all that. You invest $30, $40, $50,000 into your house or your business for solar power, and you have to pay upfront charges. Because you still have to pay for all the usage of electric lines, and since you're not paying it through a metered bill, now we're going to charge you X amount of dollars. And they do that here in South Carolina too. You could go to the federal government and take a $50,000 loan out, and it gets all written around, and you get tax advantages. Let's just say they were paying you. Let's say a kilowatt cost you $2 from the electric company. They would buy that kilowatt for you for 10 cents and then sell it to your neighbor for $2, and then would charge you the use of the electric lines to do that. They would only give you a credit. You don't get, let's say, my solar is so good and everything, and I use one light bulb in my house, and I'm selling 5 times as much as I'm using. So I should get a check from the electric company. You only get a credit, and that's not an unlimited credit either. Meaning that, it just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up and adding up. No, doesn't work that way. The idea of you spending all that money on solar power, that's why I don't believe in it. It's a losing proposition. Because if you were to take a loan out against that, that loan has to be satisfied when you sell that house. Or the new owner has to agree to take over that. And there's a whole rigmarole with that. And they're just going to go, no, I'm not going to do that. Those panels are 8 years old. Those batteries are, at the end of their life. I'm going to have to put all this money into it. And if you go, well, I'm not using it anymore. You got to remove it from your house. Yeah. So it's all baloney. Don't believe any of it. But in Los Angeles, Karen Bass is, of course, from the LA fires and all the mistakes that she made, is all being brought to light. Gov Newsom had to step in a few times to go, where they wanted to condemn property because there's been no, building on that property. It's empty. Well, you can't build on it because I can't get a permit to build on it. I have the money from my insurance company, but I can't get a permit because you're 8 years behind on all that. Or every time I do go for the permit, you keep changing the regulations on what I'm allowed to build there. I should be able to at least build what I had. Now, if I want to do a restructure and everything, all right, then I could see you might have to jump through hoops, but let's put that aside. I had a 5-bedroom colonial. I got a 5-bedroom that meets the same square footage and footprint. Nothing's changed. And they go, no, we're not going to give you a permit for that. And they're doing that in California and in other states. New York will be doing it shortly, where they seize the property from you. You can't do anything with it. You're not allowed to sell it. Remember that they put the selling ban So people can come in and buy your property and stuff. So the only people that you're allowed to sell it to might be the government. And what do you think they're going to do with it? Well, we're going to make that low-income housing. And you have to walk away from your property. See, that's where when you hear the government start talking about equal equity, all that means is that if you have 80 and they got 20, we're going to get it so you only have 45 and they get 35. Because you're going to make up their difference. That's equity to these people. So, be careful. All right, this has been 45 minutes, a little bit longer than I wanted to talk. There'll be no show tomorrow. Happy Easter, everyone, and Passover and everything else. Everyone be safe. If you can, give to a charity. I can understand you not wanting to give to a charity. You can't trust them, but you choose a charity that you research and you give to them. If you don't want to do that, please think about giving to a local food bank. Food and a monetary donation goes a long way for a food bank because they can address an immediate issue right in front of them. And it's local. You're helping locally. You actually see help being done. And I just ask people, don't judgment, these people that need the help. Sure, it could absolutely be their fault that they're in the situation they're in. I get it. But if there's children involved, they had no say in that. Think about that. All right. Say a prayer. Prayer does work no matter what a Democrat might tell you. And with that, I'm going to say goodnight, and I'll catch you later as I fade to black.